Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Like, share, comment, subscribe, become a channel member where you'll get access to all archived videos. Support black male media, support independent media, super chats enabled, super thanks for the replay gang. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, Dr. Thunder Music, all one word. Spell out the word doctor. And if you'd like to feed me sandwiches, well, all methods apply. Sandwich gang in the building. Don't mess with my sandwich money. I am Dr. Thunder. This is Rolling Thunder. And I've got a provocative topic, as usual, for our discussion. Provocative topic for our discussion. Thank you for making this part of your regular routine, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, with an open panel on Fridays. With an open panel on Fridays, today is Monday, February 3rd. It is Black History Month. It is Black History Month. And I've got a great big presentation. I've just been, this past May, I was promoted to full professor at the Big Ten institution that of which I teach at. Is that the right thing to say? I mean, I've been tenured since what was it? Was it 2010? Yeah, tenured since 2010, associate professor, and then I just was promoted to full professor, and that's been great. Few more responsibilities. I was no less a professor prior. It's just a ranking system, so the way it works, and they needed to see a level of work over extended period of time, so I could be promoted to full professor. Well, the university's making a big deal about it, and so I have this big lecture that I'm delivering. And let me tell you the name of the topic. I will be filming it and uploading it to the channel. The name of my lecture, and it'll be about a 40-minute lecture.
Not all sandwiches are created equal, sandwich. Congrats on your promotion as well.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, Saint Cyr. I appreciate it. And of course, that's evidence that the super chat function is fully operational, so please like, share, and support the show. But the name of the lecture I'll be delivering for this inaugural lecture series is called Authentic Representation and Systemic Exclusion in Black American Music. And my focus will be on in particular, the exclusion of black males. Of course, we know that without black men, there is no black music. Without that, there is no black music. Okay, when you look at the history of this, 100%, that's the truth on that issue. And so I'll be leaning in on that point throughout the presentation. I'm really looking forward to that. It's been a long time coming. I've actually had this presentation done for, I don't know, about 3 months. So I'm looking forward to delivering that presentation. And as I said, I will film that and I will upload it to the channel. So looking forward to that. So that'll be tomorrow. I'm not sure what's going to happen tomorrow morning as far as a Rolling Thunder goes, because I'll be playing West Side Story. I'm doing West Side Story. I've been called mercenary as I am. I've been called to play with the symphony orchestra for this for West Side Story. And look, that's something that I haven't done. I played dozens of musicals. This is one that I haven't done yet, so I'm pretty geeked about that. So I'm not sure how that's going to work, but on Wednesday we'll be back for sure. I may stream at some point later on. We'll probably do a Two Dads React on Tuesday. So looking forward. Anyhow, just a little bit of housekeeping. As you come in, please drop a comment in the chat, and I'll shout you out, as is our usual protocol. And keep in mind that I do have a super chat goal in mind for these morning shows, so please like, share, and support the show. Today's show, Dr. Thunder responds to accountable commentary. Now, I've got a video that will warm up the show with. I've got a Sabby Sabs video. And so we'll warm the show up with that. But then we'll get into the video that Accountable Commentary did, which was a response to a live stream where I covered one of his videos, reviewed one of his videos. I've reviewed a number of his videos, and that video was a video that was put in the Discord for me to take a look at, and so I did. And he didn't appreciate my approach to reviewing that video, which included a challenge with absolutes, making absolute statements when trying to put forth certain arguments. And my reason for having an issue with that is nothing against him. I said something about the argument being weak or not logical or fallacious, but that was not me coming for him. He's not the only one that uses absolutes in the context. And my point there was not to besmirch or to belittle the work that he's doing over there, which I think is important. My point was, if the goal is to try to if the goal was to try to expand and proliferate the message, you have a number of folks that actually are sitting on the fence. And they're deciding which direction they're going to go. And so my point was about framing arguments in a way that would be less susceptible to pot-shotting. That was my point. It has nothing to do with, coming for AC or anything like that. I've been nothing but respectful of AC on this platform. Nothing but respectful. And if I saw someone in my chat that was being disrespectful, trolls that come in or whatever, if they were saying stuff that I thought was out the side of their neck, or that was being, incendiary or whatever, then I would call that out and would block them, as is my usual protocol. Everyone in here knows that I don't mess around with folks coming in and saying stuff, just coming out the left side of their neck. Now, people can disagree with me. They frequently do disagree with me. And I do engage my chat when things are said that I want to address. That's no evidence that I want an echo chamber. I would argue that that's evidence that people that come and watch me and that are in my chat feel free to be able to voice exception with something that I say. I didn't kick anybody out. And I know that a lot of people, his platform's larger than mine is. I know a lot of people that watch me also watch AC. I know there's a lot of folks that really dig AC. That's cool. I don't have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with that. Now, the danger with this kind of stuff is it can easily distract from the central message. And although he at least insinuated that I wasn't actually concerned about black men in his response, that's not anything that I would ever say about him. Absolutely not. We can disagree on that point, and perhaps the way that I expressed my issue I can understand why he would take issue. Now that I'm thinking back about it, but it wasn't it wasn't personal. He insinuated that because I said something about being weak or illogical, that meant that that Keisha is animating my the way that I argue my points. So that was my issue. I even said, as I was talking, I said frequently, I understand why he says things the way that he does with respect to a small percentage of outliers. I get it. I don't have an issue with that. I'm not sure that makes me a simp. I mean, if you go and look at the comments in his video, apparently I'm a simp. I have the chip installed. Well, it just all it means is that folks haven't actually watched my content. So that's that's my deal. That's my deal. Look, I appreciate what AC is doing on his platform, and that's why I have reviewed a number of his videos. And he's had a number of videos, especially from I want to say the time period correctly. He's had some stuff on. Oh, okay. So early 90s, early to mid 90s, I guess early 90s. Like he played a Phil Donahue. He played a Phil Donahue a video, and he was looking at the way, because he's making certain assessments about this stuff is not new. This is old hat. More people are talking about it now. More people are aware of it. But this stuff is this sort of dysfunctional a business. This folks getting on major media or outlets, being platformed to dump on black men ad nauseum. We know this is the case, but it was good to see many of those videos. He's got a lot of knowledge. So I don't have any. If folks were expecting some sort of roast or something, that's not how I conduct myself, and everybody knows that that's not what I do. Which, it's unfortunate that though though I took issue and with the framing of a particular argument, and it's not even to say most of his arguments, it's to say one argument in particular, then somehow that makes me a simp. I don't know. That's, I mean, if you ask me, that's pretty ridiculous. That means that we can't disagree on anything. And I think that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. Now I'm going to go through the video where he's reviewing me, because there's a number of things that were said. Look, I do like 3-hour live shows. Okay. And it would be pretty easy to find something out of context. And or often is the case that when I watch myself back, or I think, man, I should have said this a different way. There's certain arguments that I was presenting that there were better versions of those arguments that I should have presented. And and I can take that. I can take that. So shout out to you, AC. If you watch this, if one of your Patreon, as you said, puts it in your Patreon to look at. Shout out to you. My video was not to try to besmirch what it is that you're doing, the value of what you're doing. I'm certainly not questioning your motivation. We just have different approaches with respect to that issue. I'd argue that we have a lot that we agree on, probably more often than not. No, I happen to be a theist. I happen to be an Orthodox Christian. And I happen to be a married man. But, with respect to the support in providing a platform for brothers, that is definitely in common. I don't have any reason to question your motivation. And yeah, so hopefully that same sentiment will be returned. So anyhow, what we're going to do today is I have a video to warm up with, And then we're going to go over some epistemology. uh, we're going to talk about epistemology. We're going to talk about induction and deduction. We're talking about the different ways that people arrive at conclusions about if something is true or not. So this is going to be very interesting, and hopefully you'll stick around, though I don't plan on slinging any mud. Hopefully you'll stick around, and you'll have an opportunity, hopefully, to learn something. All right. So, all right. I'm not going to run a countdown because I want to just get into it. But let's do this. Warning. Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, let me get rid of that. Okay. What are we doing? All right. So let's do this. I've got a Sabby Sabs video. We're going to open up with this. We're going to open up with this, and then we're going to get into our main event.
You know, since the whole deportation started under Donald Trump, there have been a lot of like fear mongering and a lot of questions. And one of the things that was brought up was that, well, Black Americans, you better sit back and be quiet because you could be deported too. Let's see if that's true. We're going to take a deep dive into the 14th Amendment, why it was created, and then who was it really created for. We're also...
Now, this is a critical point, which she's going to go through. This is a critical point. Okay, this is going to talk about the whole birthright citizenship business. Now, Trump has claimed that he wants to revert that back to what it was originally intended for. Okay, and it was originally intended for slaves who, due to Dred Scott, were not considered citizens, and so they needed to change that. So they had to amend the Constitution to do that, and it created this birthright citizenship business, and later on began to create this anchor baby issue, and that sort of citizenship. Even the children of illegal aliens have been granted citizenship because they were born in the United States, though their parents were not. They're basically accessing this law or this amendment of the Constitution that was put there to benefit slaves, descendants of slavery, right? And it's created all kinds of issues. We know that there's been many issues associated with, reduced wages. You got these illegal immigrants in here, and they can work for pennies on the dollar. You have these historically black jobs, right? You have black jobs, many of which have been taken by illegal immigrants, migrant workers and whatnot, and who again can work literally pennies on the dollar. So it screws up the pay scale. And as the black unemployment rate is always way higher than the general employment rate, it could be a pathway towards starting to fix that issue by eliminating competition for working class folks. Okay, so
we're going to journey into a little bit here to see why the DOJ is also trying to see if they can deport Native Americans, which God knows, how can you deport them from their own land? And I don't even know where that came from, but we're going to dive into what the language says and if they should be concerned. There are already Native Americans that they've had ICE agents come up to them to try to detain them. So let's get into it, folks. We're going to take a deep dive, and we're going to start what this statement here from Donald Trump, starting with Black Americans first here.
We've got what is it, 76 people in here. Thanks for being in here this morning. We're in our warm-up topic. We'll be getting to my response to AC, his video. We'll play that back, and I'll go blow for blow, as it were. 37 people have liked the video. Please like the video. Let me shout some folks out: John Smith, Andre 420, Dolomite, Jay Everything, Face Facts, Saint Seer, Michael. Let's see here: Mr. Supreme, Matrix Media, KJ, Naga Iboko, Tunnel Runner, Shark Sims, Kinley Jink, Anubis. Let's see here: Ghetto User 49, Leon 008, Bureau Hammer. Toxic Male. Great. Let's see here: John Smith, Bureau Hammer, Hashim Shabazz, Saint Seer. I think I said Barry Hamilton. Yeah, I think I've said a few of you. Brother Darkness, Hitflix. Let's see here: Hampton, The Sower of Seed. Yes. Cardev, Leon 008. Okay, Hashim Shabazz. Yes, Seth's son. Let me grab this super chat real quick. Leon 008 saying, "Wait, hold up for a second, Dr. Thunder. So they said you were a simp because you know the truth, but choose to still operate in organized society." Right. Thank you. All right, let's keep going.
Who was the 14th Amendment written for? Listen to what Donald Trump says here, because I think a lot of people need to hear this.
We are fighting hard to get birthright citizenship or automatic citizenship for the children of illegal aliens. That's another way. It's automatic citizenship for children of illegal aliens. That's the other term that they use, which is actually more accurate, more understandable. And it's ridiculous. We're the only country that has it, and certainly the only country that has it to that extent. And it wasn't meant, if you look, it was really meant for children of slaves.
What's happening Forever Blessed?
This is when it happened. The children of slaves, it was not meant for everyone to come into our country by airplane or charging across the borders from all over the world and think they're going to become citizens. It's not meant for that. It wasn't meant for that. And hopefully at some point the courts will understand that without having to go through a whole big deal. This was meant for the children of slaves. And look at the timing of it, and you'll see. And I hope judges will understand that. And it has to stop, because it's really hurting our country very badly. We are fighting.
Okay. Did everybody hear what he said? The 14th Amendment was for the children of slaves, for American descendants of slavery. Well, let's take a deep dive into that, because again, I got to look up my own shit, because politicians say anything. Where did this all come from? Where did the 14th Amendment come from?
What's happening Forever Blessed?
See where that came from. We need to dive into the Dred Scott decision. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here. Does the 14th Amendment guarantee birthright citizenship? Listen to this, guys.
The reason why this became important is because of Dred Scott. Dred Scott is the decision in which Chief Justice Taney held that both slaves and freed slaves could never be citizens of the United States, could not be legal persons, even though they were born on the territory of the United States. So Dred Scott itself rejected the birthright citizenship rule. The North, at great cost and lives, would then overrule Dred Scott once they won the war, and after the war enact 3 amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th amendments, which I would say at the very least restored the rights of people before to birthright citizenship. Think about what...
Okay, that part right there. So again, this overturned that Dred Scott decision. So that part there is really important, right? Now, we need to look at the amendment. We need to see exactly what it says. because I haven't looked at this in a long time. But this will be important when we get to the piece about what is happening to Native Americans and what the DOJ is trying to do. So listen to this. There are 5 sections. Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. This part here is very important because this is what the DOJ is starting to focus on. Are citizens of the U.S. and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the U.S., nor shall any state deprive a person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction, there's that jurisdiction again, the equal protection of our laws. Part 2, representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. This part here is important. But when the right to vote at any election for the choice of electors for president and vice president of the United States, representatives in Congress, the executive judicial officer of the state or the legislator, is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such state, or in any way abridged, except for participation in rebellion or other crime, the basis of representation therein shall be reduced in proportion with the number of such male citizens shall bear to the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in such state. So remember back then, it was just they were just talking about men.
That's right here. Yep, that's right here. What's happening, Dub Deuce? What's happening to Dustiest of Ronins? Face facts.
And notice how they mention electors, right? Because when you vote for the president, remember, you're not really voting for the president and the vice president. You're voting for the electors. Let's go to part 3. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president or vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the U.S. or under any state, who having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the U.S. or as a member of any state support the Constitution of the U.S. shall engage in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to enemies thereof, but Congress may by a vote of 2/3 of each house remove such disability. And then 4 and 5. The validity of the public debt of the U.S. authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned. But neither the United States nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid or insurrection, of insurrection or rebellion against the U.S. or any claim for the loss of emancipation of any slave. But
yeah, the face facts. The pronouns are pretty deliberate. You know, they're pretty deliberate in this in 14th Amendment.
All such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. And
what's happening, Christopher Clipper?
5, the Congress shall have power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. So that is the 14th Amendment. And I thought it was important to look at that because, again, we go back to the Dred Scott decision and we see here that, again, this was overturning that, and it made it very clear who this was for. Now, here's the problem. We pop out here. When there was news that the deportations were happening or was going to happen, when Trump said he was going to do mass deportations, a number of people on social media said, Black people, you better get ready because they're going to get you out of here too. No, because those of us who are descendants of slavery, we are
what's happening, Grind Hard?
Protected by the 14th Amendment. Now, had there been no 14th Amendment and the Dred Scott decision would still be the law of the land, we would be screwed because the Dred Scott decision said that we were not citizens. So that's important. Now, what Donald Trump did here is called delineation. He delineated among the Black diaspora. And I know some people.
Delineation is what she was trying to say.
People take issue with this and they have a problem with it, yada, yada. But when it comes to certain legal issues, this is important. The reason why it's important is the same thing for reparations. This is why I continue to tell you, you can't base reparations on race.
Yeah, that's not what this video is about. But she's pretty good. She's pretty good about addressing some of those kinds of arguments. You know, she's not a feminist. She's an anti-feminist, right? She thinks that feminism actually has been quite devastating to black people, in particular to black women. You know,
it has to be based on status. The reparations claim on race, that will be overthrown. So the way that you do it legally is to base it on status. And if you go back and you look at General Sherman's promise, that was to slaves and their descendants, 40 acres and a mule. That's not to everybody in the diaspora.
Yep. 40 acres and a mule ain't just because you're African diaspora. It's a specific classification that's required. And she said you have to do this based on status, right? So the classification, that's what we're talking about. And the classification was Negro. Negro meant freedmen, right? It meant descendants of slavery, American descendants of slavery. It meant, foundational Black American. It meant all of those things. It meant, colored, all of that stuff. That's what we're talking about. Black. So black, when black gave way, Negro gave way to black. Black gave way to African American. But all of that stuff still, we knew exactly what people were talking about, was American descendants of slavery. Now, politicians have been clever because in their interest to increase the size of the, of their constituency, is to start using this black term to connote phenotype. Descendants of African diaspora, rather. So then anybody that comes, even though their family structures have been different, they're everything is different. Culturally, the cultural dynamic is totally different. And so then therefore what it is that they would need would be different things than American descendants of slavery. But they don't care. Democrats don't care about that. They just were trying to, incorporate as many people as possible, to bring in as many people as possible because they wanted those votes. What's happening in Anthony Southeast?
And when I say this, sometimes people's feelings get hurt. I didn't write the law. So it's important that you understand the law of the land. Yes, Nini is correct. Yvette Carnell and ADOS was the first to stress lineage and delineation. Right. It's important. People don't like it. Some people get mad. But again, I didn't make the law.
And look, I don't agree with Spike Lee on a lot of things politically. But that whole, 40 acres and a mule, that his production company, of course he's aware of this, and he has enough savvy as far as different sort of classifications of peoples. I mean, if you're talking 40 acres and a mule, if you're talking reparations, if you're talking any sort of historical promises that have been made, those promises were not blanket promises made to anyone that is a descendant of Africa, that came from Africa, rather. African diaspora. No, it's talking specifically about American descendants of slavery. That's what we're talking about. And the thing is there's folks on both sides of the argument that will attempt to use it's clever. They'll attempt to say, well, we can't give everybody, all black people, this, and and they'll use numbers that suggest that they're including African diaspora. not just American descendants of slavery. And then the folks that, the tethers and whatnot, they come here, then they have an issue with it too. But look, it's a different scenario. And promises that were not made to people just because they came from the continent of Africa. that ain't the deal. This is a specific classification. It's what Negro and freedmen meant.
So what that does show you is that Donald
105 people watching, only 54 likes. Please hit the like button.
Trump and all his craziness and ridiculousness and foolishness, even Donald Trump understands that there's a difference. So when you're looking at
and this is interesting, especially the way that she framed that. All right, so you Democrats, you liberals, whatever, you can't take Trump. You think he's an idiot, racist, misogyny, narcissist, all this stuff. You talk about him like this all the time. I probably agree with some of that. I agree with some of that. But, you say he's all of this stuff. But even a guy like that has enough clarity to be able to to see the difference here, to be able to look in this and say, hey, we're not talking about, this business with Dred Scott and the 14th Amendment and all this. The 14th Amendment was not about creating anchor babies. At least he's clear enough about that. They try to play dumb. Democrats try to play dumb on this issue. And then they'll try to somehow grandfather, or rather not grandfather, but rather graft in to civil rights, illegal immigrants. Like you're supposed to have the same, like we're supposed to apply those principles to anybody that just shows up. If you give everything to everybody, then you won't have enough for the people that actually have been paying taxes, the people that those services, those promises, whatever, were actually promised to. The people that you're not going to have enough. You can't do everything.
at things legally, you need.
And then, of course, my favorite thing is anytime we've gotten close to them considering doing something, then what they do is they say, well, we have to be financially responsible. We got to, they start playing that game. As if America, anytime recently, has been financially responsible at all.
Need to know that. So what did he?
Oh, right. Shoehorning. Right. Shoehorn those illegals in. That's right.
Just do. Now, I see a lot of people get upset online when people who are American descendants of slavery make that same distinction that Donald Trump just made. People are getting mad at Black Americans making that distinction. But when Donald Trump said it, they're like, oh, okay. So what's going on there? So we cannot be deported. People need to stop spreading that lie.
Right. And that's like one of those fear tactics that's coming from the Democrats, right? Oh, they're going to deport you ninjas. Y'all should be careful not to, not to point out certain things because they'll add you to the list. It's like, y'all just don't know what the heck you're talking about. It's like some of that fear mongering that is going on saying, oh, you get Trump in here and he's going to be the last president, because he's going to, change the rules. He's going to be in there for like 20 years.
Now,
first of all, Trump is old. Secondly, that is not going to happen. The government is structured in a particular way. It doesn't allow for that. It doesn't allow for that. What you'd have to have is you'd have to do some sort of amendment to the Constitution, and the bar for that is so high. All the states have to be in agreement and all this kind of stuff. That's never going to happen.
To add to this, though, here's another problem. Because now the DOJ is referring to the same amendment that I just read to you, and they are trying to say that Native Americans can be deported. Let's get into this. This is crazy. This is insane. Excluding Indians, Trump administration questions Native Americans' birthright citizenship in court. Oh my God. Here we go, guys.
Now, this will be some crazy stuff. Now, this would be some crazy stuff.
This is crazy. This is insane. But listen to this. The DOJ called into question the citizenship of Native Americans born in the U.S. under the 14th Amendment, citing the 19th century law that excluded Native Americans from birthright citizenship. In a case on Trump's birthright citizenship,
that's funny, Chris M. What's happening?
Executive order coming out of D.C., attorneys quote the 14th Amendment, which reads that all persons born or naturalized in the U.S. and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, there's that term again, are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside, and hang their one on the arguments on the phrase subject to jurisdiction thereof. This is what they're focusing on. Under the plain terms of the clause, birth in the U.S. does not by itself entitle a person to citizenship. The person must also be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So they go into this piece here. They are citing a Civil Rights Act of 1866, which predates the 14th Amendment by 2 years. The Justice Department attorneys specifically cite a section of the act that notes that all persons born in the U.S. and not subject to any foreign power, excluding Indians not taxed, are hereby declared.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is some different stuff. What's happening, Dick Thug? This some different stuff.
Declared to be citizens of the United States. Does everybody see how they're paying very close attention to the text? The administration then goes on to argue that the 14th Amendment language, the phrase, the subject to jurisdiction thereof, is best understood to exclude the same individuals who were excluded by Act, i.e., those who are subject to any foreign power and Indians not taxed.
What's happening, Jason Mui?
They are referring to a Supreme Court case titled Elk versus Wilkins. The DOJ's attorneys, they are arguing whether or not Native Americans should be entitled to a birthright citizenship. Later in their argument, citing Supreme Court case Elk versus Wilkins, in which the court decided that because members of Indian tribes owe immediate allegiance to their tribes, they are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and are not constitutionally entitled to citizenship. Fam. Oh, hells no.
That's some crazy stuff there. That's some crazy stuff. What's happening, Practical Dean?
People who are actually indigenous to the land. Where would you even, first of all, they're indigenous to the land. You should not deport them, period. 2, where would you send them to? They're from here. Their lineage was here before it was even the United. What? But do you see how they're reading through all of?
What's happening to Trev 211? But the thing is, I don't think it's a bad thing for them to read, to read this and have a particular angle that they see it. That may actually facilitate them creating an amendment or that shores that up. And then in shoring that up, then you can eliminate this sort of general application of the 14th Amendment to facilitate anchor babies. Yeah. What's happening around Swanson?
This and this piece right here. The United States connection with the children of illegal aliens and temporary visitors is weaker than its connection with members of Indian tribes. If the latter link is insufficient for birthright citizenship, the former certainly is. The Trump
100 people in here, only 70 likes. Please hit that like button.
Administration argued.
Also support the show. Hit that super chat.
So if you guys don't believe me, this person posted something and I want you to see what they're trying to break down. It says here, the Dems party are the cops of Uvalde. That's the name of their group. But they said the text of the 1924 Indian Citizenship Act reads as follows: be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the U.S. in Congress assembled, that all non-citizen Indians born within the territorial limits of the U.S. be and they are hereby declared to be citizens of the U.S., provided that granting of such citizenship shall not in any manner impair or otherwise affect the right of any Indian to tribal or other property.
So this is interesting. Chris M's comment. They probably would reclassify the indigenous as resident alien non-citizens, just like the people in Guam. What's happening, Mr. Blackwell? That's man. Look, even that is obviously even this is a huge smack in the face. Goodness gracious. They just need something that just gives that clarifies and gives that citizenship. And then you're done with it.
This was approved on June 2nd, 1924. So like I said, hell's no. But this is what they go on to say. Zeneb said exactly, they can't even make this asinine argument. And the commenter responds and says they can't make the argument for the purposes of taking away Indian citizenship. But the argument is being made that the reason why the 1924 Act was necessary in the first place is because birthright didn't apply to Indians. Back then, they were still calling them Indians. Fam. It's getting messy, okay? It is hot out in these streets. That's why I told you the theme is, oh, hell's no. But they are already, you guys know there are some Native Americans that have already been approached by ICE. I kid you not. So Jordan Sheraton called this out. Listen to this.
This is crazy stuff. This is, goodness gracious. This is ridiculous. Now, wait a minute. How about you? Hey, but how about you ninjas? Because you know you ninjas always say that you have Native American in your family. Maybe. So that's a double whammy. They about to. Wait a minute. You is a descendant of slaves, and a descendant of Native Americans. Oh no. They about to get you ninjas out of here. Oh no. What's happening, Winthrop?
I was contacted. I was not the only person contacted. Just so you know, there were others who were contacted. And there was an individual who was detained in Phoenix, an individual who was a Navajo male was detained in Phoenix. Apparently it happened yesterday and was released sometime this morning. The detainment was done by ICE, and it was a scary, traumatic experience.
This is happening in America. This is racial profiling on steroids. It is disgusting and vile. This is not about keeping America safe or the integrity and sacred border. This is just about terrorizing brown people.
Now, here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. This is all like hyperbolic, right? There's hyperbole on both sides of this. All right. Now, what's likely to happen is some sort of softened, more centrist sort of a position on this issue. All right. Now, unfortunately, the sentiment that causes them to look at the 14th Amendment and say, hey, we shouldn't have anchor babies, also opens up this sort of Pandora's box, and there's all this other stuff in there. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord, goodness.
Terrorizing people with accents. Getting rid of the other.
Oh, goodness, man. John Smith. Well, since so many of the pro-blacks hate America anyway, now they can go back to Mother Africa and start new Wakanda. That's right.
There are a number of videos I've seen as well on TikTok of people being approached. I agree with you. It totally says it makes no sense. No, it doesn't. And the way that Native Americans are treated in this country anyway is absolutely ridiculous, considering it was their land. But I don't want to.
I believe the Supreme Court will rule in Trump's favor on the 14th Amendment and clarify who can be a U.S. citizen, and then millions of people will be denaturalized and called resident alien non-citizens, like the people in Guam.
Yeah, that happens. That's crazy stuff. That's crazy stuff. Thank you very much, Chris M., for that big $20 support. That big $20 support. Please like the video, folks. Got 104 people in here. Please like the video.
End with no solution, right? So what can you do about it? This guy brought up really good points. Please pass this on to everyone that you know that is indigenous. He's going to tell you what you can do. This is really important.
So the DOJ argued that Native Americans don't have birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment, which they do. Now, that being said, if you are a Native American.
Okay, so I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means. So if somebody else is flipping out, then the solution is for me to start flipping out. That's how that works. Really? So let me go hyperbolic. They're hyperbolic, so the solution is for me to go hyperbolic. Come on, man. That kind of stuff doesn't make any sense.
American, you do need to be carrying some sort of tribal ID or U.S. ID on you. Apparently, several Native Americans have been detained for multiple hours without their cell phones or a way for them to contact their families or their tribes. Now, the tribe that's been most impacted by this is the Navajo Nation, and apparently this has sparked a lot of fear, especially among tribal members who live in urban areas and might struggle with getting them the proper documentation. Now, several of these Native Americans did provide documentation of either a state ID or something called a CID, which is a certificate of Indian blood. But apparently ICE is not recognizing these documents as valid proof of citizenship.
Does everybody hear this? So why do you have to walk around with this in your pocket or this in your wallet? Like, this is insane.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this stuff is really crazy. No, come on, man. None of these words that you're saying make any sense. If none of what you're saying makes any sense, you're basically saying they're being extreme, so we should be extreme too. Come on. Come on. That doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't fix anything, because nobody's going to accept the extreme on the other direction either. Come on now. I don't even remember what I was saying. Oh, I was going to say the thing about being profiled. I mean, I've been profiled, racially profiled. I was profiled, so I'm Big Ten. I work at a Big Ten academic institution, university. And what's happening? Detroit 313. And I got profiled in front of my office building. I was too swole. And I had my gym bag, and I was about to start walking to the gym. I think I was going to catch the bus or something, or go get my car or something. I can't remember what it was, but I was standing in front of literally in front of the building my office was in. And a few cops, it was 3 or 4 of them. They were like, "Hey, where's your ID? Where you going? Who are you?" Oh, I said, "Oh, I'm Sean Wallace." So I need to see ID. I was like, "Well, I'm a music professor here, professor of jazz saxophone. My office is like right here, like this. Well, we still need to see ID." And I'm gonna tell you something. I always have my ID, but for some reason I just didn't have it that day. Something happened that morning, and I got out of sorts or something, and then I just left my wallet at home. Okay, so I didn't have my ID. So then they were like, "Well, somebody needs to ID you then." I was like, "Okay." So it was like 4 or 5 cops. They escorted me over to the School of Music office, the front office, where one of the executive assistant for the director of the School of Music, which was a black woman. She still works there. And she saw all these police around me. She was like, "What's going on here?" And they said, "Can you ID this gentleman?" Said, "Yeah, he's the professor of jazz saxophone. Well, yes, that's one of our professors," like this. And then they were like, "Oh yeah, we're sorry." Whatever, ninja. All these, well, they weren't ninjas. There was, actually, I don't think there was any black cops. It was all white cops. So, having an environment where that is like the default is kind of scary. That's kind of scary.
Like, again, why? I mean, how would you guys feel if you were walking down the street? Let's say you just went for a walk and you said, "I'm just going to leave my..."
That's right. I was asking better you. That's right. I was asking for trouble. That's right. You can't be big, black, and have a thick neck. That's right. You was asking for trouble. That's right. What's happening, UFO kamikaze?
Purse at home. I'm just going for a walk around the block. And you get stopped by a police officer and they're like, "Where's your ID?"
We got 86 likes. I need you all to continue to hit the like button. We shadow banned over here. So I need y'all to help by hitting that like button. I appreciate that. Much appreciation. Thanks for being in here. And we're almost done with this, and I'm about to get started with the main event.
This is a mess.
Native Americans, people who were here long before us, people who belong here more than any of us, are being detained and questioned about being deported, and they're not accepting tribal, proof, ID, whatever, as valid. Look, I'm just going to call this right now. Again, like I said in an earlier video, the criminals, the predators, all of those people, get them the heck out of here. In fact, take American ones with you. Get them out of here too. There's going to be a lot of lawsuits.
What's happening, Terry Folds? So he's actually advocating to deport American citizens that are criminals. So that sort of undercuts an aspect of your argument. Now it's going to be hard for you to make an argument without people to pointing that out. Say, "Yeah, wait a minute, isn't this a guy that said he wants American citizens to get deported?" Wait a minute.
Coming from this when it comes to American citizens and Native Americans. Now, that being said, if you are Native American, please make sure that you are carrying some form of ID that will prevent you from having to be detained for X number of hours. Anyways, to stay up to date, make sure to hit that follow button. Drop your thoughts about all this in the comments.
What's happening, Shadrach?
Yeah, guys. I mean, make sure it's crazy, but make sure you have your papers on you. MBD said your papers and your passport are not in order 30 days in Zakula. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man.
That's right. That's right.
But that's scary stuff. I also saw there was a video where let me put this up here. A woman who was Puerto Rican, like they tried to detain someone who's Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. Like I don't know, man. It's scary. It's scary. But I think it is important that we broke that down so now people can stop with the rumors and the myth about the 14th Amendment. And I hope now that you guys understand like what predated the 14th Amendment, what it was a response to, and that you understand. So please pass this on to your friends. Black Americans who are descendants of slaves cannot be deported because of the 14th Amendment. Now, if they were to remove the 14th Amendment, then maybe we can talk. But right now, that's not the case. If you do know someone who's indigenous, please let them know to have documentation on them. They shouldn't have to do that, but this is where we are. Hey guys, this was a Sabby.
All right. Shout out to Sabby doing the Lord's work over there. Really great content, third party oriented content, calling stuff out around the political spectrum on the left, on the for Democrats and from Republicans. She's more on the left. She's more of a Green Party. More on the right, I guess, if you want to do it that way. Although there's some stuff that I'm on the left on also. It's difficult. There's not really a place for black men in the sort of duopoly. And so, I'm a little more libertarian, but there's some Green Party stuff that I can get with. Jill Stein was actually talking a good reparations game. So she had some good points on that, and so I was in favor of that. But anyhow, but there's some other stuff I'm in disagreement about. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We are getting into our main event, and our main event is this video here. I think it was Thursday. That I reviewed one of Accountable Commentary's videos. Now, I've done other videos. I've always been respectful. I don't call anybody names. I'm not calling into question people's motivation, if they're actually, for black men or not. I'm not doing any of that kind of stuff. I had an issue, and in this video, I actually expressed two issues. He covered one of them. This issue, with respect to framing certain arguments as absolutes, making them susceptible to someone basically just pointing out, hey, but I know somebody, or hey, my family is not like that, or other people that I know are not like that. So you're saying all, but I'm saying, but what category do I put these in? They're not all. What category do I put them in? And since people are highly influenced by stuff that happens in their vicinity, there's a strong tendency for people to consider what they see in their lived experience as being a disproportionate representation of what's in the world, and that that's problematic. So that was my issue. Okay, now I used a couple words. I said something about weak, an argument being weak. I said something about, fallacious or whatever. But that was not me attacking AC. I mean, YouTube is about, ideas, right? And we don't have to agree. It's about communicating ideas. We don't have to agree on things, but because we don't agree, even if we're edgy in the way that we disagree, that's not me coming against AC or saying that, you know, or calling into question his motives or anything like that. Okay. Now, so what I'm going to do to set this up is I want to talk about a few principles of epistemology. Okay. So here we go. Here is a definition of epistemology. Okay. So epistemology is the theory of knowledge, especially with regard to its methods, validity, and scope. Epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes justified belief from opinion. That's what epistemology is. Epistemology. All right. I had another definition I wanted to read. Okay, yeah. Well, I'll get to that later. Epistemology. Now, there's different ways to arrive at a conclusion. Okay, there's different ways. What's happening, D? What's happening, Mr. O? There are different ways. What's happening, Bureau? One is through the process of induction. Another is through the process of deduction. Okay? Now, there's a lot of ways that we access history that is not firsthand. Okay? So we have to rely on eyewitness testimony. And a matter of fact, the job of a historian in developing a strong historical framework, there are certain things that have to be accounted for, but there's a lot of things about what we understand about history that we have to, at a certain level, we have to take it for granted. We have to accept what it is that we're being told at some level, unless you were there firsthand, right? So eyewitness testimony would require, for it to be valid, would require that people are willing to take what it is that the person is saying on face value. They'd have to be willing to do that. And there's no proof that there's nothing that you're gonna know 100% to be that you can depend on or rely on what it is to be the case. There's nothing, there's no way to access that kind of knowledge. So, in a matter of speaking, there is an element of faith associated with taking someone at their word. You have to believe in what it is that they're saying. Now, you can have more confidence as there's more eyewitness testimony. All right? As there's more eyewitness testimony, you can have more confidence. All right? But induction, which is sort of the way that we think about science, right? And then we project results that we're able to create in a controlled environment. We project those on the in a general sense. That's induction. Deduction is to take something that's generally true and apply it to something particular. So here, I've got a couple of videos I'm going to play that are going to lay this out. Okay, so one of the videos, okay, here we go. This is a short video.
You start from something general and draw a specific conclusion when it comes to deduction, whereas the reverse is valid for induction, with you starting with specific premises and drawing a general conclusion. Here's a simple example for deduction. 1. I start with something general and say that all my family members use money, and 2. I say something more specific, that John is a member of my family. From these two premises, I draw a specific conclusion, that John uses money. Let's move on to an induction example with me making the following specific statements. 1. My mother uses money. 2. My father uses money. 3. My brother uses money. 4. My sister uses money. From these specific premises, I draw the general conclusion that all my relatives use money, and the more examples of relatives who use money I think of, the more probable I consider my conclusion.
Now, to my point, in this list, you say my mother uses money, my father uses money, my brother uses money, my sister uses money. If you had a fifth point that said my grandmother doesn't use money, you can't say this last statement, all my relatives use money. So this is pretty simple. But if all of them, in his experience, and this is framed in an anecdotal manner, if all of the things here, my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, then okay, all my relatives use money. Okay, so that can follow if that's all of the information that you have. Okay, so let's keep going.
All my relatives use money, and the more examples of relatives who use money I think of, the more probable I consider my conclusion.
Okay, so probability. Probability is not certainty. It's not certainty. It's probability.
Please understand that with deduction, your conclusion is certain if your premises are true. However,
okay. Okay, so you're seeing the difference between something that's deductive and something that is inductive. Induction can only yield to probability. Deduction is the only pathway that we have to certainty.
please understand that with deduction, your conclusion is certain if your premises are true. However, when it comes to induction, your conclusion is only probable if the premises are true, and the more premises there are, the more probable the conclusion becomes. What if my distant cousin Joe gets abducted by aliens and no longer uses money? In that case, as far as the deduction dimension is concerned, I now consider my conclusion false because my first premise has proven to be false, with Joe being the exception, which is enough to prove it false.
Okay, there you go. Okay, and this is what I was saying before. All that's necessary is to find one. Is to find one, and it invalidates the findings. That's the point. This is a very simple point that I'm making. I'm not making this point doesn't mean that I'm encouraging it doesn't mean that I'm encouraging people to act in a way that's not for their best interest. It means that I'm pointing out a principle. That's all that means. I'm not sure why that is a problem or would be a problem. But let's keep going.
When it comes to the induction dimension, however, all my four premises are still true, yet my conclusion is false. And
so there you go.
Right from the beginning, I've accepted this uncertainty.
This video tutorial.
Okay. All right. So pretty straightforward. Now I'm gonna explain to you real quick what a syllogism is. We're just gonna talk about what a syllogism is. Here it comes. 1 second. Okay. So a syllogism is an instance of a form of reasoning in which a conclusion is drawn whether validly or not, from two given or assumed propositions or premises, each of which shares a term with the conclusion and shares a common or middle term not present in the conclusion. For instance, all dogs are animals, all animals have 4 legs, therefore all dogs have 4 legs. Okay? So, yeah. So, I'm saying this for this reason, because as we start going through this, as I start to review, as I start to respond, there's a number of things that are being said, and I'll stop in case by case. I'll stop, but I wanted to go through this part before we started that. Okay, so stay with me. Stay with me. All right, here we go. Let's see here. Where's that video? Where did it go? Okay, here it is. Here we go.
Salute, salute, salute to black men. Salute, salute. You know, I was in a Patreon today, right? You know, I'm chopping it up with the brothers in a Patreon, and you know, one of the brothers said, "Hey, AC, you know, Dr. Thunder did a reaction to your videos. One of your videos you did." I said, "Yeah, that's fine." You know, I was like, you know, every now and then he does that. He reacts to one of my videos. He was like, "Nah, man," he in there saying that, you know, your argument is weak. You know, your views are illogical, and I'm like, really?
Okay, so I did not say his views, plural, are illogical. I took an issue with one thing.
Really? And, you know, I said, are you sure it's Dr. Thunder, right?
All right, and then look at the name of his video. He said my argument is weak and illogical because not all of them are bad. That's not what I said. I mean, that's not the heart of what I said. But I understand that you have to name videos in a concise way so people have an idea of what's being said. So I don't fault that. I name videos all kinds of things that may or may not be what I'm actually expressing in the video. Right?
And the reason why, because, you know, he's been in the live a few times. You know, I don't go live much, but a couple of times I went live, he popped up in the live, and the brothers was, you know, salute him. And then,
and I would donate to his channel because I don't have an issue with AC. I have an issue with one argument that he was presenting.
I'm like, you sure? He's like, yeah. So I go and check the video. He sent me the link. I checked the video, and then he gets to the part, and I'm like, wow, this is not a good look for you, man. This is not going to be a good look for you. Not at all. It's really not. Because what's about to happen is what ends up happening is when your audience don't agree with you, especially when you're talking about another black man, right? If they don't agree with you, right, you're going to get some pushback. That happens, right? You're going to get some pushback. And the reason why you're going to get some pushback, because they pay attention what you're saying, right? They're paying attention to what you're saying. Because if you're going to make a video and say something reacting to another black man's video, right? And you're going to say things that, you know, that goes against what you're saying, you know, and then say something that they heard for themselves and then go back on it, they're going to call you out. And then from then on, you're going to get frustrated. And I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you why right now, black men.
Okay, so, and he's going to say this throughout the video. I think you all know I'm a pretty measured, methodical kind of dude. I'm not prone to getting triggered or overly frustrated or any of that. Now, what I would say though is, if someone in the chat takes issue with something that I'm saying, because I encourage dialogue and I encourage folks to have different opinions. If you have a different opinion, you can express that different opinion. That's totally fine. I have no issue with that. But don't expect that I'm not going to say anything. I am going to say things if it is an opinion that I think has a hole. I will express that. And if there's multiple people, I will do that also. That doesn't bother me. I think people know what the deal is. Yeah, and again, and I think that there's a certain amount of people wanting to be like crap starters, you know, and oh no, this is about to go crazy. We about to be you know, this kind of stuff. That's not what's going on. That wasn't what was going on in the first video. At no point.
Hey, listen, there's no beef. This ain't no beef or anything like that.
Yeah, and 100%, no beef. We don't have a beef. We have a disagreement on an issue. Okay? We have a disagreement, and that's cool.
I don't be up here beefing with black men. This ain't no beef, but hey, you kind of did this to yourself, you know? It's not going to look good right here. It's really not. This is their level. All of them. Not some, not all of them. I'm so sick of seeing, it's just some of them. It's just, no.
Now, this is where I vehemently disagree with him. Because there's too much, I mean, in my own family, there's too much evidence of those that don't behave this way and are not.
What's that, black man? Is that not anecdotal? Your own personal experience? You're talking about your family, right? That's his own personal experience, right? We're going to get to what I mean by all. I literally said right after I said that, I literally explained it right after that, but he cut it off right there. But is it not anecdotal when he's talking about his own personal experience?
Like this. Okay, so this is where I disagree with AC. Okay, so let's talk about this anecdotal point. What I should have said is, though the experience is from my own experience, though the information is from my own experience, and that aspect of it is anecdotal, the way that I'm using the argument is to disprove by creating another point to add that you can't say all, because all it takes is one person or anybody to say, I found this. So what that therefore means is you cannot say all. That was my entire point. And this is why I played hold up here.
You start from
This is why I played this point here. Right here. Okay? Because this is framed, this is induction here. This is the scientific method. You have to start with things that are within your own experience. That's how you first access the nature of reality. So every single one of these is anecdotal in that it's that person talking about their own family, but it's not anecdotal with the respect to the way that it relates to the argument. Okay? If you can say my mother uses money, my father uses money, my brother uses money, my sister uses money.
My sister uses money. From these specific premises, I draw the general conclusion that all my relatives use money and...
Okay. Now, but even in this situation, when you say all, it only can be a probability, because induction can only yield probability. It cannot yield certainty. It can't yield an absolute. Only deductive arguments can yield absolutes. That was my point. Now, in a live, often is the case that, you wish you had something back, you could say it in a different way, this kind of thing. So that's all I was saying on this point. I understand, and I can even understand saying majority. Right, because an inductive argument can only yield a probability. It cannot yield an absolute. That was my point. But to say all is just not something that you can defend, because all it takes is to find one that is not that way, and then that destroys your argument. Look, D, I don't have an issue with this. I don't have an issue with asserting that from a probabilistic perspective, it may be better to avoid certain folks. I don't have an issue with that. Okay? And I don't have an issue with this either. My point is a technical point. It's just a technical point. You could call it a technicality, whatever you want to say. But me pointing out this technicality is not evidence that I'm trying to push brothers to take risks with, ghetto quiches. That is not evidence of that. Now, of course, that's what gets insinuated later, but that's not the deal. I think it makes your argument quite weak. Very, very hard to defend.
Weak, right? You
okay? To that point, that's why I said weak. I'm not coming for AC. This is actually a point that I've made multiple times. Not even reviewing an AC video, but commenting on things that people say in my chat frequently.
You're about to see what's weak right here, black men. You're about to see what's weak.
And when you do that. Yeah, no. What I just said is not anecdotal.
What? You see right here? Mr.
Okay, so I just I went through that. So that's why I went through this, because this is go ahead.
What is AC's end game? If all BMs refuse to mate with BWs, how does the race secure its survival? This is death by lethal integration.
I mean, look, I'm not here to argue against what it is that his general assessment of this situation, and I'm not here to argue against that. Thank you for the support.
With the info right here. Salute to you, Mr. He said that's anecdotal though, Doc. You lost already. Okay,
so again, to be fair, the way that I framed that, I can see why that would be easily misinterpreted. What's happening, Hoodservative? I can understand that. Makes total sense. And if I had it to do again, I would have said it in a different way that made it more clear. Okay. So I can take that. So I can take that refutation in real time. That may seem like it's a mic drop, but if you understand what it is that I'm actually saying, it actually is not. It's actually doesn't destroy my argument.
Would have been, you're down bad already. That's anecdotal. And you just said that's not. And that, you know what happens?
No, it's a step in. It's actually part of the scientific method, right? The scientific method is you must start with things that you witness yourself, which is anecdotal because it's you witnessing it, right? But then you use multiple experiences with the nature of reality to start to form your perception of reality. And that's why you can't conclude with anything other than a probability. Okay? That is what I was saying. And it's actually not a controversial. It shouldn't be controversial, what I was saying. I think the reason that it's controversial is because a lot of people rock with AC. So if it sounds like you're saying something against AC, then the tendency is going to be for people to rush to his defense. I got it. All right. But I was not coming for him per se. I just took an issue with this particular thing that he frequently says. And that he obviously is still doubling down on. It's not like because of anything that I said in the video, he said, you know what, I can see what you're saying. Maybe I'll say this differently. No, he said the same thing. So that definitely is his position, and that's okay. I didn't say he couldn't defend himself. I think he does a fine job defending himself. I didn't say that, D. I'm saying, but for him to use, for instance, folks that are in my chat that are saying things that seem to underline his perspective, that's the point I'm saying. That's the part I'm underlining. And again, this is not a beef. I'm just trying to clarify what it was that I was saying. That's all.
That little bit of pushback right there threw him off his square. This is what I mean by looking for an echo chamber. That little bit of pushback threw him off his square to have him say something that we all just heard. You're trying to make it seem like we didn't see what we just saw. That's crazy, right? It's going to get worse, though. It's going to get worse.
That's not what I said was not anecdotal. I just provided counter evidence.
This is all the doing.
Counter evidence based off of what? Your own?
No, based off the principles of induction. It was counter evidence. I mean, it was a counterpoint. It was, you have your 4 points. I showed that the video over here. Let me do that again, just to show. So this is the process of induction again. So all that's necessary is for me to write to have a point here that doesn't say that one of my relatives uses money. I can say my grandmother doesn't use money, and so then therefore all my relatives use money. It can't be said. That's also, but then also, even in this framing, this is can only be based on probability. It can't be an absolute, because that's how induction works. Induction does not prove absolutes. It only proves probabilities. It can be a high probability. Okay, let's keep going.
Own personal experience. That's anecdotal. Who does this? Who does this? Who does this? Who does things like this? I know y'all gonna put in the comment section. Who does this? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but here's the thing, D. I don't disagree with that. I don't have a problem with that. Let's do that. All I'm saying is, if you are, so say if you're having a discussion in the public square, okay, and they have their arguments and you have your arguments, if you frame those arguments in a way that makes them susceptible to naysayers and people that just want a pot shot or whatever, to be able to just say another point, make another statement, well, I know somebody that's not this way. If you want to avoid that issue, then say majority. That's all I'm saying. I don't understand what again, I'm not sure what the breakdown is. And that doesn't mean that I'm not concerned about the well-being of black men, that I don't, have a heart for black men or support the interests of black men or whatever, that I'm eager for black men to run out and do stuff that's going to damage them. It doesn't mean any of that. It's only in relationship to the argument and how the argument is framed. That's it.
I understand you got Keisha's, subscribe to your channel, but come on, man. You don't start acting like one. Come on.
Okay, now what let's do this again.
I understand you got Keisha's, subscribe to your channel, but come on, man. You don't start acting like one. Come on.
So now I'm acting like a Keisha. Okay? Now, and again, shout out to AC. This is not a beef. This is not beef. But I never
You only need is one to dispute all. You need 51% to dispute most.
Right. Okay, so now I've never engaged in I've not engaged in name calling or suggesting that that he is being animated by some nefarious force, getting or that he's producing his content for the sake of whoever. I never did that because I'm not going to make assessments about somebody's motivation. And besides the fact that you can't really know what their motivation is anyway. I mean, you can, get some sort of idea of what it is based on what it is that you know about them. But what I try to evaluate is just stuff on its surface. So whatever something is saying face value, I just try to evaluate it that way. And so I do like to use the word dusty. You're right. That's right. We are dusty, but I'm including myself in that. And of course that's tongue in cheek. I know, D. I know you're more serious. You're more serious than sometimes my humor is. I understand. But I'm not going to try to. I just take stuff. I take stuff on face value, and so any pushback on this issue is not a pushback against AC. It's just we're just talking ideas. That's it. What's happening, Chakra? What's happening, Lion 917? That's all.
That's exactly what Anecdotal is, man. That's exactly what Anecdotal. Let's go.
Women. Behavioral disorders are taught, not born with, like mental disorders. If behavior is learned, how are behavioral disorders not taught?
Thank you very much, Face Facts. Yeah.
Now, if it would have just stopped right here, I wouldn't have been making the video. But you're going to see why I made the video. I'm telling you, looking for an echo chamber with a channel, it really takes out the value of your channel when you.
Okay, I'm not looking for an echo chamber. I think people that are in my chat, they understand. They know that. I'm not looking for an echo chamber. I think that's part of the reason why people come and check me out, is because I don't have the same view as a bunch of other folks do in the space. And it's actually a rather diverse kind of content that I have, which is probably part of the reason why some of my videos, or a lot of my videos, don't get more views than they do, is because it's the content is quite diverse. I've got the Two Dads React show, Tuesday nights, and that is very much, the other guy on the show, my co-host, is a white guy that I've known for a long time. He's got a channel called God Rules, and we talk about anything from stuff verging on conspiracy to biblical prophecy, and being a dad today, all of this kind of stuff. We talk about all that kind of stuff. I had a show called I still had the show. We need to reboot the show, called "In Getting Ish Done" with Ike and Dr. Thunder. Ike is a tether. Doing that tongue in cheek there, but he's Nigerian, and so we have our thing, and it's all about leveling up and productivity oriented kind of content. I've got a show called Case Closed, and that is a panel show with a consistent sort of consistent panel, same folks, and we weigh in on everything from politics to whatever the trending sort of topics are in the space. So there's that. The folks that I've collaborated with have been quite diverse, from Ramil Amir to BGS Ibmore to CGA to Rollo Tomasi to Donovan Sharp to all kinds of folk in that sphere. But and I had an interview series where most of the folks that I interviewed were musicians, at least for the first 50 episodes of that, world renowned musicians, people like Wynton Marsalis and folks like Ron Carter, and a number of folks on that sort of echelon, but then also content, interviewing folks that are politicians, folks that are content creators from other other spaces. They have all kinds of different views. I've interviewed folks that are outright feminists. I've interviewed, matter of fact, what is it? Chris Marsh. Chris Marsh has reached out to me and wants to do a conversation. Do an interview, because somebody told her that I was talking about her book, or talking about whatever. It was in a derogatory manner. So I'm just saying, to characterize me or my platform based on a criticism that I have as being an echo chamber, or me trying to foster an echo chamber, or any of the rest of that, it's at least a hasty generalization. It's at least that, because I'm not. Yeah, let's keep going.
You're looking for an echo chamber.
Yeah, what I just provided was counter evidence.
And he's still going.
In other words, if you can make an absolute statement, this is why using absolute statements produces weak arguments, tends to produce weak arguments.
No, it doesn't.
It does if you're trying to, if you're talking induction. It produces arguments, conclusions rather, that cannot be defended. You can't defend those arguments. It makes them susceptible. That's what I should have said. I shouldn't have said weak, because I can understand how that can sound like being trying to dig somebody, trying to get like a little lick in or something like that. But that's not the way that I conduct myself. And it's obvious to me that it's obvious to me that AC has not watched very much of my content. And that's cool. That's fine. I mean, he has the larger platform. I'm sure I watch a lot more of his content than he has ever watched of mine. But if he had watched more of my content, I think he would know that many of the sort of general assessments of me, of what I'm trying to do with my platform, I don't think he would have said some of that. Okay, now maybe he still would have, but I'm just saying, it just seems like he doesn't really know my content that well. But look, he could still vehemently disagree with me. He could still take issue. He could still, whatever. That's fine.
And I'm gonna prove why it doesn't.
Right? It's too easy to defeat the argument.
He already lost.
Better to say most, or a critical mass, or disproportionately. Those are things that you can justify. But if you make your argument, you frame it in such a way that all it requires is for one person to find, and it could be a straight unicorn.
Is this easy work, black man? Y'all already know where I'm going with this. Is this easy work? Did he really just say unicorn?
So if I say unicorn, I'm not sure how that makes an argument for him. I don't understand that really, because by me saying unicorn, I'm acknowledging that there is a serious problem. Right? I'm acknowledging that we're talking about a small percentage. I mean, I could have said a needle in a haystack. I could have said, and I've even used this expression when describing this issue. A needle in a pile of needles, right? Because they all look the same. They're saying the same stuff, right? You can't tell the difference, this kind of thing. So I understand. I get it.
Did he really just say this? Even after because I know he heard my video before.
Yeah, I've watched a bunch of AC's videos and have been supportive of his content because I like his content.
After I explained right afterwards where he cut it off, are you really easy work? This is light work. Y'all already know where I'm going with this. I talked about this so many times. Y'all already know where I'm going with this. Let's go.
It destroys the argument. Right? And right. So nothing. So check it out here. And that's our point. Well, then you shouldn't have an issue with what I'm saying then. Yeah, so I mean, but this is stuff that I've said over and over. So me bringing out a nuanced point does not eliminate the number of times that I have said that that I've described this as being, an existential threat, that the situation is dire, that the only thing that can fix this issue is a catastrophic event that wipes out 90% of the Earth's population and destroys all the technology and like this, and then and then we'd be back. But that wouldn't do it permanently. That would only be a temporary a temporary fix, because as human beings continue to develop social systems, you end up in the same problem over and over. It just keeps reoccurring. So I've described that. I've described how we have, as a society, we have continued to rebuild the Tower of Babel. The internet is the Tower of Babel. The internet is what is animating all of this foolishness. It's what making all this stuff worse. And it's not genetic. The problem is not genetic, right? The problem is being caused by the environment. It's the environment that produces this. So you have to change the environment, or else you're going to have just more of the same issue. Is absolute, right? Like Friedman's Journal said. So that's why those arguments don't work. So again, and I'm talking about inductive arguments that are being framed as absolutes, that the conclusion is framed as an absolute. Because again, inductive arguments cannot yield absolutes. They can only yield probabilities. I mean, I think you can point out case by case behaviors that are pretty common. And you can make arguments that more often than not, these are regular behaviors.
A shower of seed. He said, and this is a problem. He said someone always got to say not all. At this damn point, it's practically is all under worse circumstance. Yet somebody always got to say not all. Let me tell you something. You watch those those videos with KS, RIP to KS.
And by the way, AC has had disagreements with KS. Right? He doesn't, and so have I. There's a number of things I don't agree with KS. Right? It's okay to disagree. It's all right to, even if you're talking about influential voices that have a lot of followers.
Their number one defense when he's talking about the dynamics between black men and black women, their number one defense is not all. And I'm going to tell you why that's a problem. But let's.
I'm not sure who he's talking about. I'm not sure if he's characterizing what I'm saying is that. I'm not defending the majority by saying not all. I'm actually underlining, it's actually a way to underline, and then I also said stuff like unicorn, I'm underlining how dire the issue is. I'm just trying to give space for a certain kind of nuance that will allow for us to say how dire the issue is without concluding in a way that it's going to make it easier to defeat the argument. But yeah, and I understand that. Look, he even says after he's done here, and I say also that I understand I understand his method. I understand why he's saying that. But I was just saying, look, this is my issue with this framing of the argument.
Let's go.
And I don't even think that you can make this argument. This also is an absolute.
So he's starting to get put. Every woman is like that eventually.
is like that eventually. That also is not something that you can defend. See, we have to be careful. Look, we have to be careful of not committing the fallacious, using fallacies to present our arguments in a way that we have criticized.
He said fallacious. Do you know what fallacious means? It's a mistaken belief. That's what fallacious means. A belief. We're going to get into belief also. Let's go.
Women in general society, the gynocracy, Keisha or whatever. You have to be careful not to commit the same fallacious, the same fallacies in your presentation. Yeah. So fallacy or fallacious. So he's partially right with his definition, but the rest of the definition is, so it's a mistaken belief, especially one based on unsound argument. That's what fallacy or fallacious means. A mistaken belief, especially one based on unsound argument. I'm just saying that because that's my whole point. Is the aspect of the argument. That's it. Of information. Okay. So that's yeah. I totally agree with this. And maybe that is the middle ground. Maybe that is the middle ground in this sort of discussion. Because this allows us to agree on what we agree on, but still suggest that we should still attempt to get it right. Thank you. Let's keep going. That's what I'm saying. And that in no way is defending or not recognizing how dire the situation is. You can recognize how dire the situation is.
That's exactly what he's doing. But let's go.
No, I'm doing what I said is what I'm doing. I don't have any ulterior motive or nefarious plot that I'm trying to hatch. What I said is what I meant. Okay, and albeit maybe it wasn't as clear as it should have been. It could have been clearer what it was that I was attempting to do. 100%. I can take that criticism. I can work on that. But I don't think there's any need to call into question what my motives are or to insinuate that I'm here to hatch a nefarious plot or something, because that's what he's implying here by by saying that the words that I'm using don't connote my actual meaning, but that I'm using the words to try to say something else that I'm not.
Let's go.
Women in general society, the gynocracy, Keisha or whatever, you have to be careful not to commit the same fallacious, the same fallacies in your presentation of information. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. And that in no way is defending or not recognizing how dire the situation is. You can recognize how dire the situation is.
That's exactly what he's doing.
And
but let's
also
go.
not use fallacious arguments to frame that.
Look, he got
He
got Keisha's joining the chat now.
100%. The system facilitates bad behavior, incentivizes bad behavior. Now, that's something I agree with. And more often than not, people are going to do what they can get away with. Yeah, so there you go. And I agree with BGS that the issue is an environment issue. If you change the environment, in mass, you will change the behavior.
He's starting to get pushback. 100%. I don't know, Doc.
I have no issue with it. But why not? Why not respond to what it is that I just said about the environment?
He's starting to get pushback.
Let's keep going.
Let's go.
But I'm not sure how getting pushback is evidence either of me having fostered successfully fostered an echo chamber. Because people would have to feel at liberty to express misgivings or, have a different opinion. Now, I don't put up with trolls,
And I tell you that because I don't want you going out there thinking there's some good ones out there. There's some decent ones out there. Because what's going to happen?
Now, I also understand the reason why he's saying things in an absolute. He's explaining it right here, right? He thinks that there are so few, and that may or may not be true. Okay.
That may or may not be true. What type of fence? See, I tell you, playing the fence. That may or may not be true. Let's go.
You'd have to take that on a case by case sort of a scenario, but he thinks that there are so few options, good options, that don't even waste your time. Now, I should have been clearer. I should have been clearer with the way that I said that, because when I said may or may not, I was not actually disputing. I was not attempting to dispute the dire nature of the situation. Okay, and you all have heard me talk about. When we talk about Proverbs 31, virtuous woman is rare. Has always been rare. Has always been rare. Right? And if anything, things have gotten worse, not better, because the environment is facilitating bad acting. Okay, so that's something that's been a regular message. That's been a regular message on my platform. Right? But the way that I express that, I can see why he would say that I'm fence sitting. Now again, if he had, if he has watched more of my content, then he would probably say, I'm not sure why he said that there, because in other places he said this, or he said this other thing, or whatever. That's not going to be the thing that I hang him with. Because this kind of thing. But because he hasn't, and to be fair, you don't necessarily get extra shots at this. So I'm not blaming anybody else. I can take responsibility for the way I say things. But that I wasn't saying that to suggest that there's any less that the issue is any less dire. The situation is any less dire. That was not my point. Let's keep going. And I understand that. Basically, go where there are higher percentages of those that have not fully embraced debauchery and dysfunction. And there it is. There we go. I get it.
By the time you get to that good one, right? Let's just say there's some good one. By the time you get to that good one, right? You're going to be broke. You're going to be not just broken. And in a padded room.
Yeah, I did say hang. It's from that expression, giving somebody enough rope to hang themselves.
When do you get to the good one? After the third try? After the fourth try? After the fifth try? After the sixth try? By then, you probably got sent to the upper room after the third try, or under the jail because she got you locked up. You tried to come.
No, this is not. I don't think that's true. What's happening to conservative? I don't think this is true or not.
And look, I want you to. He's looking at the comments. He's looking at his comments, and it's getting him flustered. He doesn't want to see. He doesn't. This is flustered. AC is correct, and he's right. He doesn't want to see any of that.
I don't care if I see that or not, and I have a pretty again balanced demeanor. I am not prone to getting triggered. I'm not prone to flipping out or any of that kind of stuff. Now, will I be assertive on a point that I'm making, regardless as to who is disagreeing? Yeah. But I don't know that it makes any point, a particular point, because I pay attention to my chat. I'm paying attention to my chat now. I always pay attention to my chat. I start a show out by acknowledging people that have come through.
You know, that's what's making him flustered.
You can make arguments without making absolute statements. Okay, so let me give you an example of an easy to disprove argument. Okay, so atheism, for instance, is the belief that there is no God.
Nasty work. Got a Keisha as a mod.
Yeah, and look,
let's go.
Now, the problem with this, and what makes it very difficult to defend that, is how do you know, or how can you so-called disprove the existence of a God?
Now, this is crazy. This was wrong way to try to prove your point. First of all, if you believe that there is a God, right, and I'm not saying if you believe in God, that's fine, But if you believe in God, right, it's not up to the atheist to prove that God don't exist.
Okay, so he's taking the opposite, and it's he is taking the opposite of what I was saying. What I'm saying here, and I could have framed this more clearly. There's a version of this argument that is more pointed and is clear. So what I should have said was, you can't. You can't make statements like, there's no such thing as a pink polka dotted elephant. Right? Yeah, there's no such thing as a pink polka dotted elephant. Right? That's not something that you can actually prove. In the same way, atheism is the belief that there is no God. It's the assessment and the proclamation that there is no God. That is not something that you can prove. I wasn't talking about theism, proving if there is a God or not. I was talking about atheism, not theism. Now, I have a method actually by which, and it's a deductive argument. It's not through induction. It's not through, it's not through induction. It's not through, I saw this with my, with my eyes. I touched it with my hands. It's not an argument that's based on that kind of interaction. But that's my point, Skinner Allsteer. It's not possible to prove that there is not a God. But that is what atheism is. Now, what's started to happen, because this argument has been made so successfully that the terminology has begun to change. So now there's these subcategories of atheists, right? It used to just be atheist, agnostic, and then you have stuff on the other side of that. But you used to just have atheist and agnostic. Agnostic just says, well, I don't know. I don't think there's enough evidence either way for me to conclude that there is a God or there isn't a God. Either way, I'm going to live like whatever my lived reality is. I'm just going to let that dictate if I think something is happening or not happening. Okay, that's fine. That's agnostic. Atheist is a claim that there is no God. That's what atheism is, right? Now, again, there's been these new subcategories. Now there's the so-called agnostic atheist, but that's basically just an agnostic, right? Because it's very difficult to defend that. Now he's going to say something about faith and facts, and I want to address that.
It's up to you to prove that God exists, and you can't prove that.
Now, I think that there, through deduction, I think you actually can prove it, but I don't know about through induction. Induction would be a hard method to prove it. So you can use stuff like historical accounts. You can use stuff like eyewitness testimony. You can use stuff like other historical documents around the time of Christ, for instance. Flavius Josephus, Cornelius Tacitus. These were secular historians. There are many methods by which to access aspects of history. Eyewitness testimony. You can consider stuff like all of the disciples of Christ except for John, the Revelator. John was exiled and blinded. The rest of them were all martyred. So they believed what it was that they were dying for. They at least believed it, and they had a close enough proximity, having been folks that were actually with Jesus. So you can go into detail on this, and this term epistemology is going to come back.
Scientists would tell you that they believe in God, but they can't prove that God exists. Am I right or not? They can't prove to you God is, because when you look at people, right, religious leaders, right, religion, you got what? How many Christians? You got 2.4 billion Christians on the planet right now, right? I think you have 1.2 billion Muslims and 2.4 billion Christians, right? Their teachings is based on what? Faith. 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 Not fact.
Okay. So, faith, not fact. So, that's not entirely true. So first of all, it depends on what you mean by faith. And it also depends on what you mean by fact, too. But the New Testament word, the Greek word for the word faith, also believe and confident is another word, is the word pistis. It's the Greek word pistis. It's the same word that's used in epistemology. Same word that's used in epistemology. Now let's talk epistemology again. So epistemology, the theory of knowledge, especially with regard to its methods, validity, and scope. Epistemology is the investigation of what distinguishes justified belief from opinion, right? So facts from opinion. All right. Now, the word pistis literally means, the root word pistis means to argue to the point of belief. It's not blind faith. Now, I know there's a bunch of what I call Christianity light, megachurch Christians. There's a bunch of, there's a lot of that, megachurch Christians like this that have a very limited understanding of what it is that they believe or why they believe it. And I would criticize them as heartily as anyone else. But pistis literally means argue to the point of belief. It's actually a legal term. It's as in eyewitness testimony. It's as in preponderance of evidence, these ideas like reasonable doubt, the principles of what's admissible, what's not admissible. It's a term that was taken from that context. It's a legal term, or to argue to the point of belief. Now, that's not a flimsy thing. What's happening, Free Zone Lou? That's nothing flimsy about that. So that's not like, now in the, I have to say this too. There's been an unfortunate bifurcation between science and religion.
AC is not arguing religion with you. He's using it as an example because as men we have a lopsided burden of proof with all of our arguments.
Yeah, no, I understand that. He took issue with, but his angle on what I was saying, his issue with what I was saying was as if I was arguing the proof of God, but that wasn't my point. My point was you can't disprove God. That was my point. So, but he argued on the other side of that, which wasn't my point. But if you want to consider that, you would have to use things outside of you'd have to use things that are outside of direct knowledge. This is not a beef, Free Zone Lou. It's not a beef. Thank you, Face Facts.
So it will be up to you. And how can you prove that? How can you prove that? This is no dig to people who believe in God. This is no dig to people who believe there's a God in the sky. It's not a dig to y'all. If you believe there's a God in the sky, but you gotta admit that it has never been proven.
So in Christianity, Christians believe that it's been proven in the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's why that's like a central, that's the central component of Christianity. That's what Christians believe. They believe that is the evidence. Now, the only way that you can access that evidence is through history and through eyewitness testimony. You can't be there and touch with your own hands and see with your own eyes. But most things that we do and take it for granted daily are also, we're in the same boat. Do you know how, for instance, even understanding basic stuff like how your car works, or how microwave works. I don't understand the science behind that. I take it for granted that it's going to work, though. Right? So there's a lot of things that we don't have direct knowledge of all the intricacies of. And hey, that's okay. But there's a difference between that and a sort of what people call a leap of faith or blind faith. I'm not a proponent of blind faith. You need to have a reason for why you believe what you believe. Now, I may not agree with it, but you at least need to have a reason. Matter of fact, the term what is it? Apologia, right? Which means having an argument or having a testimony, having an argument for why you believe what you believe. So anyhow, let's keep going.
You have to admit that. It's up to you to prove it. It's not up to the atheist to prove that God exists. That God don't exist. It's not up to the atheist to prove that.
Actually, it would be up to the atheist if the proclamation is there is no God. Then they would. That's a truth claim. So then you would have to be able to prove that truth claim.
It's up to you to prove it. And you can't. What evidence, what tangible evidence do you have? A sign. No.
Okay, so then there it is. Tangible evidence. Tangible evidence. Okay, that's so he's again, there's been this unfortunate bifurcation between science and religion. And it's interesting because the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church has had, look, I'm not Catholic. I'm not defending atrocities committed by the Catholic Church. None of that. That's not what I'm talking about. But the Catholic Church actually was a safe haven for scientists. Actually provided the environment for science to actually develop and supported scientists. There's a long history of that. And I don't see any discrepancy between faith and science. Both things are approaching the same issue from a different angle. One approaches it from a deductive and the other one from an inductive. And then with both, you can sort of better kind of gather information. You can better, the nature of reality, trying to figure out what the nature of reality is. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that a person that makes a truth claim about the existence of God shouldn't have to provide evidence. I think they should. And that's actually what I've been talking about. But my point is that so does the atheist. The atheist doesn't get off scot-free. Now, the agnostic doesn't have to prove anything. The agnostic can say, "Hey, I don't know what's true. I think it's all. I don't have any idea." Okay, so the agnostic can do that, But the atheist doesn't get to make the statement that there is no God, and then, but then and not have to prove that. So you're in the same boat.
No scientist ever said that they have proven that God exists. No.
Yeah, and again, he's leaning on induction, but we've shown what the limitation of induction is, and the limitation of science is.
Credible science, no credible scientists. So even him using this argument is just ridiculous. I understand if you believe in God, it's cool, but using this to make your point was insane. This is crazy.
Now they're going to go into an infinite regressive events. They're going to go to the Big Bang. The Big Bang was a random event, right? And then there's an infinite regress of random events that culminated in this. But well, apparently, I know the atheists' arguments maybe better than AC does. Because that's all I was delineating, or rather listing, was usual arguments. Another thing is that evolution is the only game in town. So no matter how many holes in the theory of evolution there are, you're going to end up in the same situation. Not the same. What am I saying? Not the same situation. No matter what you do, you have to believe evolution because it's the only game in town. You have to assert, even when there's these huge gaps that don't make any sense, you have to just say, well, that still has to be the way that arose. And then when you look at stuff like the fact that the universe is expanding.
Belief is parallel to brainwashing. You can't logic someone out of their religion. Even if you had proof there was no God, the followers would not believe it. Family court is the black woman's religion.
I do agree that there's a lot of lemmings. There is a lot of lemmings, but also understand when I say belief, confidence, faith, I'm talking about epistemology. I'm talking to argue to the point of belief. That's the kind of faith I'm talking about. And then therefore, a person that actually has a standard, a standard of truth, if it's consistent, if it can be shown that there is no God, then they would be open to that. I mean, I'm open to it. I'd be open to having the conversation, but I've looked into it. I mean, that's the whole point. I've looked into it. I understand what the arguments are, what the truth claims for there not being, supposedly not being a God. Making that claim. I know what the arguments are. I just don't find them to be persuasive. Now, maybe you could say, well, you don't find the arguments that I would present for there being a God, or for Christianity in particular. Maybe you don't agree with those. That's fine. Maybe you're agnostic. I think that's the safer position, because then you don't have to, prove something that's impossible to prove. There is no God. All that's necessary to at least call that into question is to, and then this is the other thing. There's just as much of this bogus kind of faith, this blind faith, amongst scientists. It's just their blind faith is associated with aspects of induction and certain theories that they have developed, which also cannot be proven, if anything, they can only be proven within a probability. See? To show how much order there actually is. And order doesn't
Look, face fact. We need to speak in undeniable absolutes.
arise
All
out
right.
of chaos. That's not something that we can observe. Right? Down to the molecule. It's not something that we can observe. Now, what's easier to defend is, look, Lexington Steele, I don't have any reason to call into question his ethnicity or what his motivation is. I think his motivation is what he says it is. I think he's an advocate of black men. He wants to see black men do well. I don't have any reason to think anything other than that. And I think he's black. He's agnostic. He sounds black. Right?
Defense.
Okay, so this claiming that I'm a fence sitter. Now I'm going to say this: I'm not a tribalist, right? One thing I've talked about a lot on my platform is I'm not a tribalist. Something I call a binary fallacy. And the binary fallacy is it's either this or that. There's no gray area. Right? And those that are that tend to be, tribalist or whatever, they tend to nestle in with a particular ideology. They'll nestle in with a particular ideology, and then anything that seems to have an issue with that ideology, they'll characterize them as the enemy. That's an aspect of tribalism. So like the Democrats and Republicans, for instance. So like we saw this with this last election. If you said anything that even sounded like it was somewhat favorable about Trump, maybe because, even a broken clock can be right 2 times a day, right? So you say, hey, that clock was right, twice. You say anything like that about Trump, then they would just say that you're a Trumper, you're a Republican, like this. And if you said anything negative about Trump, then they would say, oh, you about to come out Kamala. If you said anything negative about Kamala, then they said, oh, you're a Trumper. Right? If you said anything positive about her, then now you're So I've spent a lot of time on my platform pointing the error in that kind of thinking, in encouraging black men to consider third-party options. I myself am third party. I've been third party for 20-some years or whatever. You don't have to vote against someone. You could vote for someone. What's happening, Arjizzle? Yeah, and look, and I welcome the pushback. If I'm on some BS, you can say I'm on some BS. That's fine. Don't get upset if I if I respond to it. But but not being a tribalist and not being willing to quote unquote pick a side as if it's a binary sort of thing, it's only this side or that side, that there's no gray. I have always resisted certain kinds of associations. Now, shout out to my Greek brothers, the fraternity brothers. I never did the fraternity thing. You know, I never registered as a Republican or as a Democrat. Even way back in the day, ancient history, when I was voting for, as far as president, Republican or a Democrat. Right? That's just not been my thing. You know? Let's keep going.
What did I tell you, black man? Do I know what I'll be talking about or not, right? You know, agnostic is, you know, a person who believes that nothing is known or can be known of the existence or nature of God. Basically, not really picking a side. Defense.
Yeah. Goodness. I mean, there's a lot of problems here, because if he really wants to make that argument, he seems to not be a theist based on things he said. Now, I don't know this for sure. He seems to not be a theist. So if he's an atheist, then he would have to prove, and if he was agnostic, he would be calling himself a fence sitter. If this follows. So, but I'm not the agnostic, and I'm not a fence sitter. I'm just not a tribalist.
And that's what he's doing. Now, let me break down to y'all. Let me break down to y'all the reason why I speak in absolutes, right? If you tell a child, listen, don't talk to strangers, right? Don't talk to strangers, right? And you tell that child, because if you talk to strangers, you will get abducted. You might get abducted, right? There's a chance you get abducted, right? There's a chance you get snatched up, right? That's what we were taught, right? Don't talk to strangers. Where do you think don't talk to strangers come from? It comes from the parents being paranoid. It comes from the parents knowing about the dangers out in the world. Don't talk to strangers, right? Now, if the child says, right?
Well, now, I'm going to tell you what's wrong with this in a moment. You may be sensing it already, what I'm going to say, but I'm going to let him rock.
Is it all strangers? Do you mean all strangers? Don't talk to all strangers? And you tell that child, no, not all strangers, because all of them are not going to snatch you up. Just the ones that are bad, right? All of them are not like that, right? That child is going to go outside, right? And it's going to be a chance where that child is by himself, and a stranger's going to approach him, right? And instead of running, yelling, or anything like that, the stranger's going to come around with some candy, right? And you know what the child is going to automatically go to? I know I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, right? But my parents also said that not all of them are like that. What kind of candy you got? When I'm telling black men that...
Okay, so here's the problem. Are you considering black men to being analogous to the child in that analogy? If so, are you questioning black men's ability to move, to understand and to make decisions for themselves? Or are you suggesting that you need to limit the granularity, how the amount of gray area, for the sake of black men making better decisions? Now, That's not something that I'm willing to do. I'm not willing to call into question the reasoning faculties of black men, likening them to children, being given information that is limited in scope because the parents know better for the child than the child knows for themselves. Okay? Now, again, this video is no beef. We have no beef. I am just pointing out why it is that I'm trying to be specific about this particular nuance. If we're saying that black men are I believe that we have great potential, that we are intelligent, that we're overcomers, right? We are those that have been oppressed the most, but came out the other side smelling like a rose. And I think that in order to survive in America, you need to have a certain level of nuance. What's happening, black men being brutally honest? You have to have a level of understanding of your environment that is nuanced in order to be able to survive and thrive. So, to the extent that I'm providing information that actually gives all of the information, I'm to the extent that I'm giving all of the information, that I'm providing all of the information and not reducing what it is that I'm saying so that it will be better, utilized or something. It's not for me to decide what's better or what's best. It's for me to provide maybe information. I want there to be options. I want black men to have more options. That's why I talk about third party a lot. I want black men to have more options. That's why I have provided my hierarchy. This hierarchy of family, family formation, of finding somebody. Right? What have I said? I've said, and this is the case for most black men are going to get married to, are going to start a family with a black woman. And I'm talking about Negro. Then there are some that will African diaspora. Then there are some that will SYSBM. And then there are some that will be passport bros. Now, I would like to see there be more passport bros. And frankly, SYSBM, right? I would like to see that. But that would be for the individual black man to decide what they want to do. So by me saying, hey, I'm a black guy, I'm married to a black woman, now I tell folks that my situation, I realize, is not necessarily typical. But for me to say what I'm saying, that's not, how is that leading somebody astray that is an adult that can reason for themselves? No. But I said if it's analogous to. No, we'll back it up. I'll go back again. He used this example about basically simplifying the message because you want children to be able to whatever. Now, I'm not I'm not suggesting that he is wholly applying that to black men. I'm saying he used that analogy, and if you take it to its logical conclusion associated with with black men, and really what I'm saying is, look, you can do that. I don't have a problem with you doing that. I'm not going to do that. So that's really where we're different there.
All of them are no good. I'm telling you that because if I say there's some good ones out there, and I explained it, and he said he understand, but clearly he don't. If I tell you,
no, I can understand that and still differ with you.
There's some good ones out there, right? What you gonna do? Even if I say, hey, there's a few good ones out there, what you gonna do? You're gonna go out there, right? You're gonna remember that I said, hey, don't deal with them. There's some good ones out there, but don't deal with them. Because, a lot of them are bad. What are you going to do? You're going to say, yeah, I hear you. You're going to see one that looks enticing, and you're going to say to yourself, hey, you know what? I heard what he said that, majority or a lot of them is no good, but he also said not all of them, and she can possibly be the one.
If a person is going to do that, then regardless as to how you frame your position, they're still going to do that. I just don't think that from saying, from changing it from the majority to all of them, I just don't think that is going to be the sort of determining factor. Now, granted, most of us have an issue with, what time is it? All right. Most of us have an issue with, in the black community, there's this thing, experience is the best teacher. Right? We're constantly saying that experience is the best teacher. No, it's not. Other people's experience is the best teacher, because you don't have to risk the consequences of that mistake to learn. You can just learn from someone else's experience. Right? So you have a lot of folks that, regardless as to when you tell them, you say, look, don't do that. This is not a good idea. They still going to do it. And that wouldn't be because somebody said not all, as opposed to someone saying all. That would be because that person is in an environment where they believe that your own experience is your best is the best teacher.
What do? You go up to her. And what happens? You find out what, black men? She's not the unicorn. You find out she's not the unicorn. And not only do you find out she's not the unicorn, you end up losing something by finding that out. The first time, she wasted your time. The first Keisha wasted your time. The second one wasted your resources. The third one you had kids with. Now she is extorting you through child support. The fourth one, right? The fourth one sent you to jail. False accusations. The fifth one sent you to the upper room. So if I'm telling you, right, that, hey, listen, out of 10 Keishas, 2 of them are okay. That means.
Well, but I'm going to argue that, I might argue that it might be worse than that. It might be 1 out of 10. right? I might argue 1 out of 10. And an aspect of that is has been a timeless principle, that that a virtuous woman is rare. That's Proverbs 31. A virtuous woman is rare. Her value is as rubies. That's rare. So we already know that that's the case, and it's a lot worse now. It's way worse because the environment facilitates all kinds of bogus stuff. So I agree. I agree that 2 out of 10, 1 out of 10.
%80 is not. That means I'm giving you permission, not permission, but
and then I would also say that the usual way I think that people are interacting with other folks is problematic. That's also part of the issue. And I've talked about, on my platform, I talk about social circle game. Of any of the quote unquote game, I'm not that mouthpiece and all that goofy stuff. I'm not into that. But social circle game, see, because what that is that actually gives you a lot of information about the person that you're considering. Because everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody. So you can go back in history. You can ask people questions about their dating history. You can ask them about X, Y, and Z, and it'll be people that you both have an acquaintance with, other people have an acquaintance with, you have close relationships with, like that. So you're going to tend to get information that's going to be, valuable, good information. Right? I'm not suggesting, hey, roll the dice, go out in the middle of the street, go get you one in the street, go get you one at the club, go get you one, that you don't know anything about, and then rush in. That's been a timeless thing too. Fools rush in, right? You don't have any information, and Jezebel's there waiting for you.
I'm giving you advice to go through that 80% to get to that 20%, but by the time you get to the 5th Keisha, you're already in the upper room.
And I agree that it is risky. It's risky. There's a lot of risk involved.
Or under the jail. Why? Because not only that can happen, but Keisha has the uncanny ability to turn one bum into 2 bums.
And then, he's using this term Keisha. So that's not a term that I apply to all black women. But there certainly is, I may say, a majority of Keisha. At least a critical mass of Keisha. But either way, there is a sort of programming, the common programming. There's a certain kind of programming that seems to be common, right? And all of that stuff is, it's this dysfunctional black community stuff. It's the tangle of pathology. It's the side with the sisterhood over what's right. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. And I'd say that impacts at some level, a high percentage 90 some percent, 95%, something like this. But regardless as to that being the general programming, I don't see that as necessarily a personal decision that's being made. I just think that folks have not been held accountable for stuff. Folks have there's a gynocentric social order, and really feminism really did this and disproportionately impacted the Black community. So because I'm suggesting that there are options, but also attributing risk factors, that doesn't mean that my desire is to see Black men losing. I've made my own mistakes. Plenty. I've made my own mistakes. And I know certain things that I would never do again. So, anyhow, that's all I'm going to get to. And again, this is not a beef video. It has not been a beef video. I tried to walk it down slow, so that it can be very clearly understood what it is that I'm saying. And I have no beef with AC. No beef with AC. I appreciate the work that AC is doing. We disagree on this point. And he took issue with the way that I expressed my disagreement initially. That wasn't my intention. I don't have any problem. I only responded because in his response to me, in his response to me, he said some things that I didn't think were fair to say about me. That I think things that folks that actually follow me, that actually know my content, understand. So that's all. And shout out to AC. Much blessings and good health to that brother. And that's all I got. That's all I got for today's show. So thanks for being here in the place to be. Like, share, support the show. Thanks for all the supporters throughout the show. And I'll see y'all next time. Peace out.